Hi, I'm Lee Sharpe and welcome to Ask Sharpey. Where you get to ask the questions and I will do my best to answer very truthfully, depending on what they are, of course. Right, let's rock and roll. Let's get into it. Well, my favourite, not being a Man United fan as a child, before I got there I wouldn't say I had a favourite Man United player, but once I got there in '88 there was no two ways about it. He ran the show, he was Captain Marvel. Brian Robson was the man. He dictated the pace of play, looked after everybody on the pitch, knew exactly what needed to be done at exactly what time, looked after everyone in the dressing room, off the pitch, on the pitch. Can I say, drank more than anyone else, trained harder than anyone else, and performed better than everyone else. He was just absolutely phenomenal, and he's got to go down as my number one player. Well, if I wasn't a footballer, believe it or not, I was just about to join the army. I'd got it in my head from a very young age that I was going to be a footballer. I was schoolboy at Birmingham City at 15. Then got let go at 16 and didn't have another club to go to, so the careers night at school, I actually went to chat to the military about joining the army because I got told if you're good at sport, you get put in the transport corps, you drive trucks, which I was quite happy about, and you get to play a lot of sport. And obviously I wasn't looking to go to war, I was looking to play a lot of sport and have as easy a life as possible, so that's where I was going. Unfortunately I got an offer from Torquay, went down on trial, got a YTS, and the rest is history. There were too many to mention. Arguments happened pretty frequently in the dressing room, and not necessarily if we're getting beat. The manager gave out instructions, and if players didn't follow them, he came in and started shouting, and a lot of players had big egos and big tempers, and wanted to win, and they went back at the manager. So a lot of the times the staff were pulling the manager back, the players were pulling the players back to stop fights happening. But it was a very heated dressing room a lot of the time, so a few too many to mention. I think everyone has a big ego when you get to that level of sport. I think you have to have a certain belief in yourself, and you always think you're the number one and everybody feels they're important, I suppose. I don't know. I don't think anybody had a particularly bigger ego than anybody else. But we had some big characters and some big leaders in there. There's a couple in that as well, really. I think the 1991 Cup Winners' Cup final against Barcelona in Rotterdam was an unbelievable occasion. The stadium was 3/4 full of Man United fans. It rained. It was a proper Manchester night. There were flares and flags waving. I was the most nervous I've ever been for a football match, and then to win that really spurred us on and gave the team a lot of confidence and belief to go on and win other things. And I think that sort of led us on to win the Premier League not long after about a 27-year break. And the first Premier League, which is sat behind me and the trophy's there, that would also be one of my favourites. So it's very difficult to pick between those two. I think they go hand in hand and coincide with each other.
Which current United player would you take to play back for your United's team and vice versa?
If I had to take a player from the team now and put him back in our team, I would have to say Ronaldo. I think Ronaldo is one of the best players that United have ever had. And if I had to bring a player forward, I've already mentioned him, it would be Brian Robson. I think he's exactly what they need to. He's a little bit like a Casemiro, but he's got more than Casemiro. I think he could score, he could get forward as much as do the defensive duties that Casemiro does. So I think I'd bring Brian Robson forward and take Ronaldo back to our team.
And not yourself for the money?
I'd come back for 3 months. Favourite kit? There's a couple of kits really. We played the European Cup Winners' Cup final, not this picture. We played the European Cup Winners' Cup final, all in white, which I thought was a lovely kit. But probably my favourite is the black Sharpe view cam kit. I remember scoring a couple of goals at Aston Villa in it. It was a stealth kit. It was gorgeous, and the whole team loved it. I didn't pick the number 5. The squad numbers came out. Giggsy got 11. Gary Pallister didn't like to wear 5 as a centre back. He wore 6. Steve Bruce wore 4. Cantona was given 7 from Brian Robson, I think. Mark Hughes got given 10. I've actually worn number 7 and number 10. I think I've scored on both occasions when I've worn them, but I think it was the only single digit number that was left over, and I got given it. I actually asked the manager after the season to go and change it, and in no uncertain terms he told me to get out of his office. It was not getting changed, so I had to keep number 5. All the time. I look back on myself and think, is that really me? I look back on the shuffle and think, what was I doing? But I also remember why I was doing it. I was doing it because it was a moment of elation. I didn't score that many, and I wanted to enjoy every minute of it with the fans, and it was just one of them moments of madness, I suppose, when a ball hits the back of the net and 60,000 go up in the air. It's hard to control your emotions.
And can you do the Sharpey Shuffle now?
After a few beers I can, but at the moment I'm on water, so not at this moment in time. Best game I ever played in? I don't know. For the team, we had a couple of local derbies against City at Main Road that were pretty spectacular, where we've sort of gone goals down. I think we went 2-0 down in one game and come back to draw 2-2. We went 2-1 down in another one and won 3-2. So coming back from defeat is always pretty special. But for me personally, I can remember one game against Sunderland at home, and I was only 19, but a 19-year-old kid made his debut against me, and I absolutely terrorised him the first half, and had probably the best 45 minutes of my life. And the second half, they put an old experienced midfielder against me, and he sort of grabbed me the first second I touched the ball of the second half and said, if you run past me once this half, I'm going to snap both your legs in 2. And I just sort of laughed at him and told Brian Robson, and Brian Robson kicked him to death for 45 minutes, and I just laughed all the way to the end of the game. So that was one of my favourite games. I keep coming back to Brian Robson. Brian Robson was the leader, looked after everyone. I was only 17 when I got into the team, so he certainly looked after me. He was never more than 5 or 10 yards away from me whenever I got the ball, so I always had a simple pass and didn't have to think too much. He encouraged me every game. He covered up for the mistakes I was making at the time. And without a doubt, he was, on the pitch, the biggest influence on my career at United. I didn't have exact direct contact with clubs. I had a solicitor that was sorting my move out. He said there was a couple of Spanish clubs interested, but the manager had put too high a fee on my head. There were a couple of clubs interested in England. I think Arsenal was one of them, but they weren't giving Bruce Rioch any money to spend at the time. Leeds were just rebuilding, so Leeds had money to spend. So it ended up being one of my only options, Leeds, to be fair. Although I had a funny conversation, the season I left, I had a funny conversation. Jordi Cruyff, Johan Cruyff's son, came to United and pre-season was sat in a jacuzzi after doing a training session and doing a bit of swimming. And he turned to me, Jordi, and said, Sharpe, he said, how come you've never signed for Barcelona? I said, oh, Jordi, I said, they've never come in for me. I said, I'd have swam there. He said, well, you were on the top of my dad's shopping list for 2 years. He said, so he must have made inquiries and I'm surprised you've never gone. I was like, well, I've never even heard anything about that. So I was absolutely gutted. In a band, well, we had a few musicians in the team, to be fair. Peter Schmeichel was a classically trained pianist, was unbelievable on the piano. Also, while we were at United, learned how to play the drums, so became an unbelievable drummer. Dion Dublin came from a musical background. His brothers are musicians. He's actually invented his own instrument, a doob, a drum that you sit on, like a box, and learned how to play the saxophone while we were at United. So we had a few musicians, but if I was in a band, who would I pick in the band? I would probably pick, well, the people I knocked around with at United were sort of Gary Pallister, Roy Keane. We were the sort of three-man band. We'd probably stick Schmeichel in there as maybe, mind you, I'd always want to be the drummer. Pete can be on keyboards, Keane can be the lead singer, Pally can be on the guitar, and we'll have Keane as the mentalist lead singer. I think that would make a top band. Well, when I left United, it was just my relationship with Alex Ferguson really that was the reason I left. The club I loved, the supporters I loved, the dressing room was amazing. We had some unbelievable players. We were successful. Manchester as a town was unbelievable. Music scene, it was all a perfect storm. But it was just my relationship with the manager. I wasn't getting on with him. I felt he didn't like me too much. He was having a go at me for every single microcosm of my life. He was having a go at my haircuts, my clothes, my cars, my friends, my performances, my lifestyle, my thought process, you name it. He was just on top of me all the time, and by the time I got to 96 when I left, I'd been there for 8 years and I'd just taken enough for 8 years and thought it was time for a change and to try something new. That's actually one of my favourite celebrations, and nothing was said. We just screamed at each other. I think it was the equaliser we scored. We were under the cosh and we got away on a breakaway, and the pitch was so bubbly and it just kept bubbling and bubbling. I thought this is going to settle down in a minute before I cross it. I could see him running into the box, and in the end it was just head down, concentrate on the ball, and I caught it crisp on the half volley, and he didn't have to break stride, and he banged it straight in the back of the net. I think that was to equalise to 2-2 at Main Road. Again, one of them iconic memories of a local derby, and we just grabbed each other and just screamed. It was an incredible moment, one of my favourite celebrations, and what a legend, what a player, unbelievable bloke. Yeah, I mean, it was always in the back of my mind from the end of the season before, 96, when we won the league at Middlesbrough. And I'd played in the midweek, and then I wasn't even on the subs bench on the Saturday or Sunday, whenever it was we played. And I just thought, that's me, I need to get away. I'd played well. I think Steve Bruce was one of the subs who'd snapped his hamstring and couldn't play and was on the bench because the manager just wanted him in his kit to pick the trophy up. So I thought it was time for me to get out. So that summer I sort of thought about it, and then at pre-season I spoke to Roy Keane and Pally about it. They said don't do anything stupid and don't go anywhere. And I spoke to Keane's solicitor, who spoke to the manager and sort of instigated the move. So yeah, it was my doing, and something I felt was the right time. Should I have gone there? I don't know. What do you think? Ask me. Well, England was a funny time. I love playing for England. I was only 19 when I played for England, and I'd got a bit of a reputation and a bit of responsibility at United to play well and perform well every week. With England, I was a young lad again, so I could just do what I wanted to do. Graham Taylor, the manager, was a great bloke, really good for me. And he just said, go out and do what you do. Go out and do what you want to do. Enjoy yourself, express yourself, and it was amazing to be part of it. Unfortunately for us, we didn't qualify for the World Cup in America in '94, I think it was. So the manager got hounded, we had turnip head, he got called all sorts of names, which was totally out of order and way too strong from the press. I think a few of the senior players weren't too keen on him as an England manager and thought he may be a bit underqualified. But should I have got more caps? Possibly. I think as new managers came in, I think after '94 World Cup, the next couple of years at United, I had a few injuries. I lacked a bit of consistency. I wasn't in the team that often. So it was a bit difficult for me to get a run in the team, get consistency and get back into the England squad. So yeah, I mean, as far as left-sided players, we had a shortage in my era, so I probably should have played a little bit more for England, but I just think circumstances and form on my part meant that I didn't. So, but would have loved to have gone to a World Cup. Looking forward to it this year, and can't wait to see if England can do it. Yeah, of course I'll be watching the World Cup. You have to watch the World Cup. And England's chances, I think England have got some of the best players in the world, especially forward-thinking players, attacking-minded players. And I just hope that Gareth Southgate, Mr. Safe, lets the shackles off and goes for it a little bit. I know it's a cup competition, you have to be careful at times, but sometimes I don't think there's any need to play two defensive midfielders. I think we need to go a little bit riskier than Gareth has done up to now. And I think we've got an unbelievable chance. I think in one-off games against anybody, we've got players that can win games on their own, and I think we've got as good a chance as any. Well, I think United, I think we can actually see improvement. I think we've seen the team change. I think the work rate has changed. I think for the last 5, 8, 10 years, I think the work rate has dropped, and I think we've seen that in the stats with how far they run in games. We saw it at the start of this season again. They dropped into old habits. You know, Brentford and Brighton, they run less than them again by a lot of kilometres. I think it was like by about 7 or 8 kilometres as a whole. And the manager took them out on a run and did that run with them and has set an example. And I think the players have followed that, they've bought into that. I think we've heard players say that the atmosphere's changed around the club. I think the manager's a really strong character. I think he's made some big decisions. I think he's handled situations very well. And I think the team have bought into it as much as the fans have. And I think they're on the way back. I don't think they're quite there yet. But the mentality's changed, the game plan's changed, and I think they're on the way up. Well, I can't say definitely, but I certainly think it hampered us. When you think of the big players that we had that come under the foreigner rule, and it wasn't just people like Andrei Kanchelskis, Eric Cantona, Peter Schmeichel. I think at the time, even the Welsh and Irish lads were classed as foreigners. So, you know, Mark Hughes, Clayton Blackmore. So we had a few that weakened the team, and I'm not saying we definitely would have, but we'd have certainly have had a stronger chance. Life at the Sharpe sequel, that might be entertaining. We could probably do one of those again. And me and Pally Antondek, I'm not sure. He's a bit too tall for me on camera. He's like 6'4", he's massive. But he's a good lad, Pally. Maybe we could do something like that. Maybe I'll get him on Life at the Sharpe End. The golf's always work in progress. It's for anybody that's played knows, it's a frustrating game that one minute you think you've cracked it, and the next day you think you've never played before. So enjoying the ups and downs, or trying to, and the frustration. It's coming. The short game's getting better. The long game's getting stronger and straighter. So we are getting there. The idea is to try and get myself onto the European Seniors Tour at some stage. And to play 2 sports professionally at the highest level. I'd love to be able to qualify and take place in the British Open. I love links golf. I think it's an unbelievable game and an unbelievable format to play. and I just love the game. I'm obsessed with it. Whenever you see me and I've got a spare couple of minutes, I'm swinging, I'm moving my feet, I'm working on something. I can't let it go. I am obsessed, as most golfers are, and always looking for something that's going to fix me or make me hit it better, or make me putt better, or chip better. But no, I think it's a microcosm of life, the whole golf game. You have to deal with the good, the bad, the ups, the downs, and I love the setting, the golf course, a big manicured garden for 4 or 5 hours, competing with your mates, without your mates. It's just an awesome, awesome game. I love it. Yeah, the golf range is amazing. The little iconic badge, bringing football to golf. I know there's so many football fans and footballers alike that love the game. So if you want to check out the gear, click the link below.